So I wanted to do this video for a while. Hopefully it will come out clear and concise. I do want to say on the front end, if this method does not work for you, the good thing about sourdough is that there are about 1 million different ways to do it, I have found. And so don't give up. If you feel like this method doesn't work, or someone else's method doesn't work, or you can't do the feeding schedule that they have or the recipe that they have, do not quit, because every season there is, ebbs and flows. So a method that I do now, I didn't do 3 years ago, and probably I won't do in a couple of weeks. You see, it's very fluid. So that's a good thing. So don't quit. Find a method that works for you. Okay, so now this method comes from Bake with Jack and Ellie Emmett. If you have not seen them, check them out. They both have great English accents. Bake with Jack is from Great Britain, and Ellie Emmett is from Australia. She recently commented on a question that I had, and I commented something and she responded back, and I was super excited. I saw her video years ago when I first started and saw her method and was like, that is amazing, I love it. Because I had seen a bunch of discard methods, and discard is great if you're using it. And we can talk about that a different day. There are lots of great recipes and different things that you can do with lots of starter and with discard. But if you want a very minimal method, a no-fuss method, and basically no maintenance, then stay tuned and I'll explain how I merged their methods together to make my method. Okay, so I wanted to show you what's inside. It is roughly 30 grams. I measured just because I knew someone was curious. Basically just what's left. So this is what I have been doing, I don't know, for the last little bit, and it's worked really well. I say that it is a no feed or no, what did I say? I don't remember what I said, but a no upkeep method, because when I first got my starter, let me tell you a little story. When I first got my starter, I kept it in the fridge and I took it out twice a week and I fed it. If I wanted to bake with it, I would use it. If I didn't, I would have discard and I would use some sort of discard recipe, and I did that every week, fed it 2 times a week. And you can imagine that that's kind of difficult. Also, when I first started this method, I fed it so I had 1 cup starter, 1 cup flour, 1 cup water, combine it, let it rise, okay? However, over time, it felt like my starter wasn't as lively, and actually feeding it more often didn't seem to make it even more bubbly. So I started reaching out to some people on different Facebook groups, because I didn't have anybody local really that baked sourdough. Actually, probably Facebooked a couple people that I knew that were semi-close, but I didn't really have anybody that I could go to their house and be like, okay, show me. And I feel like with sourdough, you really need to see it. So that's why we're making the videos, because for my local friends and then anyone else that this could help, since sourdough is such a long process, I can, but you might not want to hang out with me for 12 hours. So you can come and hang out with me in my kitchen, and you're welcome to, but this just seems a little bit easier. Okay, so I would take a cup flour, cup water, cup starter, and as I was doing some experiments, it seemed like it wasn't necessarily working. And so what I ended up doing was, I heard someone say that if you feed it, basically if you have a little bit of starter and you feed it a lot, then your starter gets lots of food. However, if you feed it equal amounts, then your starter may still be hungry. And so another factor is that if you are going to feed your starter a ratio of 1, 1, 1, like I just said, so either 1 cup, 1 cup, 1 cup, it's probably going to rise a lot quicker than if you were to do a ratio of like 1 to 3 to 3. Okay, so let me explain a little more. So what I did was, once I wasn't getting the bread that I wanted, I switched to a scale, and someone told me to measure like 100 or 200 grams flour and 100 or 200 grams water. And basically, I don't know if you can, well, I think this is probably 200 and this is almost 200. So I meant to check it, but I think that it is about, if I do 100 grams of flour, it's like a cup, and 100 grams of water is like half a cup. Don't kill me if that's wrong. You can measure it, maybe it's like a half and a fourth, but I think it's about half. So instead of giving it extra water and not as much flour, this method keeps it less runny and it actually gets more flour. Now, this will work with store-bought flour or fresh milled flour, but sometimes with fresh milled flour, it may be dry because sometimes it absorbs more. So again, you're not gonna kill your starter. I had a friend message me today, which I loved, and she was like, help me, did I kill my starter? Did I do it wrong? And I was just like, you cannot kill it. People will say, I left my fridge and my starter for a month. Is it dead? Is it gone? No, take it out, pour the liquid on the top, which is called hooch. It's just kind of alcohol. You can stir it in if you want, or you can pour it off, and then feed it and go about your method. So the reason I said no upkeep is that now that I do scale and I feed it equal portions by weight, I will store it in the fridge. If I cook weekly, it gets fed weekly. If I say go on vacation or something happens and I don't cook bread for 2 weeks or longer, this has the lid on it. It stays in my fridge just this little bit, and it's fine. I don't have to take it out twice a week. I don't have to feed it a ton. I don't have to have GOMs. It's just so much easier. So I do want to say I have some recipes that I really like that require lots of starter. And so there are seasons for that and there are like weeks for that. Sometimes I keep a huge thing in my fridge and then I have this jar just for bread or when I don't need as much. Okay. So sorry, I'm having to tell you so much. I hope that it makes sense. I'm super excited. But I felt like I needed to tell you the way I was doing it versus now. And now I'll tell you the combined Bake with Jack and Ellie Emmett recipe. So what Ellie does is she takes hers out of the fridge, she gets out what she needs, uses it immediately, and then she feeds it. She sits it on her counter, a couple hours, she puts it back in the fridge, okay? She will leave it there for, I don't know, a week. Within a week, she will take it out and use it so that whenever she wants to bake, she can bake. That to me was amazing and awesome. There is no discard. There's no like gallon container. I mean, I have seen people, and that's fine if you do that and that works for you. But in a season that I've previously been in, I did not want a huge thing and just ladle out, you know, you ladle out 5 cups that you need to get rid of, and then you add 2 cups or 3 cups more. So anyways, so when I saw her method, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So she just takes it out, she uses it, feeds it, puts it back in, and then whenever she wants to bake, she can bake. Bake with Jack, he just keeps the scrapings in his fridge. He takes it out, feeds it the night before or the morning, I think he does it night before, and then uses it. Okay, my starter rises within 4 to 6 hours, unless I feed it, say, a little bit of starter and a ton of flour and water. And so that's something else to consider. It is easy, but there is some math with temperature and how much you want it to rise. And don't let this scare you if you're new, because it's not complicated, but I want to make sure that I'm explaining it. If you have a little bit of starter like this and say I want to take 10 hours, then I would get a larger container, feed it a bunch, and leave it out. Or if it's cooler, like it is now, my house is probably 68 instead of 72, so I could probably go overnight. But what was happening during the summer was that I was feeding my starter. By the time I got up in the morning and got to it, it was already deflated. I will use it anyways, but it's just not as good. So I started feeding mine in the morning, baking with it in 4 to 6 hours, and had great results. So that's what I'm talking about timing. Sorry. You can do it. You can feed it in the morning. You can feed it in the evening. You can do a recipe where you stretch it all throughout the day at your own convenience. You can do it where you stretch it before you go to bed and you leave it. There's so much flexibility. Or you can just make a bunch of starter and use it for pancakes or cinnamon rolls or something else. So there's so many things. If you're just like, I'm not gonna bake bread, there are lots of other options to do. Okay, back to the method. So what I do is I keep the scrapings. I take it out the day that I want to use it. And I'm just gonna show you. So I'll take it out. If my scale works. And I am going to add in roughly 200 grams of water. Now, maybe some people think it's inconvenient to use a scale, but to me, I was not getting consistent ratios because I just felt like, I don't know, if you pack your flour in too much or not enough, then it doesn't. Okay, so I'm just gonna basically make sure it's all stirred in, sloshed around, and then zero it out, and I will add roughly 200 grams of flour. Sorry, goodness. So if you like your starter runnier, add more water. If you like it stiffer, then add more flour. It is that flexible. And some of you maybe have been doing sourdough for a long time and you're like, duh. But I needed this video when I was starting. I needed someone to tell me, it's okay, you're not gonna mess it up and it's not a big deal. Okay. Now we just stir. And I used to use a knife. You can also use, I meant to grab my little spatula, but I forgot. You can use a knife. You might break the bottom, so just be careful. You could use a fork, you could use a spoon, you can use a chopstick, basically anything. A little spatula does work good just so you can scrape the edges. Side note, while I'm stirring, if you make your own starter, your jar needs to be very clean and you need to keep it clean until it's well established. Once you have a well-established starter, or say you get one from a friend, you can keep it in a nasty jar like this. This one has actually been washed within the last week or two, but it's not something that you have to wash frequently. I'm not sure why, but I think in the beginning, it's at risk for growing mold, but once it's established, I have never had an issue with that. So there you go, that is it. Basically, you just keep stirring. Oh, I didn't tell you. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to make it not too long and not talk too fast, so it's keeping me distracted. So stir it in. I'm gonna stop stirring just because I wanna tell you what I'm gonna do. So I have a recipe, and this is actually stiffer than normal. I was trying to show you, but I think the liquid is at the bottom, so if I had a spatula, it would be easier. This is real life. Okay. So I want you to be able to tell, this is drier. So I'm trying to think if the starter, I've been doing starter experiments. I may show you some pictures, but I did some starter where you fed it a ratio of 1 to 1 to 1, 1 to 3 to 3. I did I did starter that was fed 3 days ago. I did starter that was fed 7 days ago. And I did starter that was fed twice. And basically all of the breads turned out the same. You could maybe say that there was a little bit of difference here or there, but for someone who is baking and you're just wanting bread for your family, it is really not a big deal. And I don't have to feed it twice. So that was really exciting for me. So anyways, my hands are all dirty, but I don't know if you can see it. So there you go. I had to clean my hands. So yeah, so if you need, I don't think it's necessary to feed it twice. I did not see any difference. I do think that the bread was a little bit bigger, the one that I fed, 3 or 4 days ago, and then I fed it and used it again. But I think it's just showing you that you really don't have to it's okay. If you go away and you leave your starter for 2 weeks, feed it once and then go for it. Now, I do feed mine a little bit to a lot. So if you're feeding it 1 cup, 1 cup, 1 cup, then yours may be too sluggish and maybe you do need to feed it twice. But mine, I'll have my little organisms and I will feed them a ton. So if this was 30, I don't know what the ratio is, but I had 30 grams of starter and I fed it 200 and 200. So these little guys, and this is where my rubber band is, these little guys are going to get very well fed. So put your mark on it. You want it to double. Okay, I think that it's taking forever. So the method of what I do is I feed it enough to do 1 loaf or 2 loaves and a little bit extra, so that then if I want to do something else throughout the week, I can just take it out. So I wait. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sit on the counter. Once it doubles, I will make 2 loaves of bread. What is left, I will then take and put with the lid on in the fridge. Okay, tighten that lid on. I do not tighten it while it's on the counter, but I do put the lid on. I saw somebody say not to do that. It needs air. I've always done that. 3.5, 4 years, never had trouble. If you know, I think I said this in this video, the other one, but if you know, put it in the comments. Maybe I do need a different container or one that lets air, but I always just put the lid on, put it in there. So after it doubles, I will take out enough for 2 loaves. I always do 2 loaves at least at once because I'm going through the process anyways. Then I will have another 100 or 200 grams left over that I will then say in 2 or 3 days, I want to make cinnamon rolls and I want them like now. Then I'll go to the fridge, I'll take it out, I will use it immediately, and we make sourdough. So it's just a great way to have starter whenever you want it, but also have keep very minimal. And so this would be great if you say just want to bake a loaf, 2 loaves of bread. That's what my mother-in-law does. So it's very easy for her to just keep a little bit of starter, feed it once a week, bake with it the same day or next day, and keep a starter. And again, if you're someone that doesn't want to bake bread, but you want cinnamon rolls and tortillas and pizza crust and all of those things, there are lots of really great recipes on Farmhouse on Boone, where she just takes it, pours it right out, or takes the big thing and makes pancakes with it. So those are great options if you want a starter, but you don't want to bake bread with it. So I hope that helps. That is a method that I have used for a couple years and I have really enjoyed it. It has made it to where I can have starter anytime I want it and use it again.